Please, everybody, take your seats. The conference is about to start.
Please take your seats. We are about to start. Please, everyone, take your seat. Most distinguished guests, most esteemed MUN directors and teachers, beloved headmistresses, extraordinary chairs, dear delegates and ambassadors, hard-working staff, and fellow members of the Secretariat. Good afternoon and welcome to the 16th edition of Rome International Model United Nations. My name is Francesca Pasquina and I will be the President of the Security Council for this year's session. It is an honor for me to have the chance to moderate this first part of the ceremony. First of all, I want to thank everyone for coming today. We have gathered once more with the same goal in mind, to promote all of the United Nations values and principles while bringing attention and discussion to major global issues. Here are some rules for the ceremony. No beverages or food will be allowed, no chit-chat will be tolerated, and please leave your seat as you found it. Today's ceremony will be divided into 3 parts. In the first one, we will listen to speeches from our honorable school's headmistress, our esteemed guests, and remarkable MUN director. Then, we will listen to some members of the Secretariat as well, in particular the Secretary General and the President of the General Assembly. Finally, I will yield the floor to Jacopo Sirianni, the PGA, and he will introduce you to each ambassador who may deliver a speech. I would like to introduce our first guest, the President of the City Council of Rome. In 2013, she was elected Capitoline Councillor for the first time, and she held the role of President of the Sports, Personnel and Statute Commission. Since the 4th of November 2021, she has held the position of President of the City Council of Rome. Members of the House, I am glad to introduce you to the Honorable Svetlana Celli.
Buongiorno a tutti e benvenuti a Roma, in Aula Giulio Cesare. Sono felice di portare i saluti della città di Roma, del Sindaco Roberto Gualtieri e dell'Assemblea Capitolina che ho l'onore di presiedere. In occasione della cerimonia di apertura della 16ª edizione di RIMUN, Rome International Model United Nations. Benvenuti in Campidoglio, benvenuti nella sede del Consiglio Comunale di Roma, capitale d'Italia, luogo più alto di partecipazione e confronto democratico. Ringrazio il Liceo Farnesina e saluto tutti gli studenti che partecipano a questa nuova edizione e che nello spirito e nel rispetto dei principi che ispirano i lavori delle Nazioni Unite dialogheranno su temi di rilevanza internazionale. In questi giorni farete un'esperienza meravigliosa, incredibile, di grandissimo interesse, anche e soprattutto dal punto di vista umano. Imparerete a conoscervi, a incrociare i diversi punti di vista. Eserciterete una bellissima azione politica partendo da una visione particolare per arrivare a soluzioni condivise. Svolgerete una vera attività diplomatica di mediazione per fare sintesi sulle varie proposte che saranno presentate e lo farete partendo dal tema che avete scelto per la 16ª edizione di RIMUN, l'energia come motore del progresso nell'era post-pandemica. La pandemia ci ha travolto tutti e ci ha incredibilmente uniti in ogni parte del pianeta. Isolati, ma nello stesso tempo eravamo consapevoli di affrontare una battaglia comune da vincere e che ci ha visto sperimentare nuove forme di convivenza a partire dalla scuola fino all'organizzazione del lavoro. Dal febbraio del 2022 una guerra terribile nel cuore dell'Europa ci riconsegna un'estrema fragilità nei rapporti tra nazioni diverse e la consapevolezza che il mondo di pace costruito con grandi sacrifici dopo la Seconda Guerra Mondiale è sempre più appeso a un filo sottilissimo. A voi ragazzi spetta oggi più che mai attivare le più belle energie per una comunità migliore e sostenibile, anche con il supporto dei nuovi mezzi tecnologici di comunicazione, dei canali social che ci permettono di essere connessi, di superare qualsiasi confine, interagire costantemente e scambiare valori e storie. Creare, cioè, una nuova ricchezza sociale, un welfare di comunità. Insieme dobbiamo lavorare per prenderci cura del nostro pianeta, per salvaguardare l'ambiente, mettendo al centro le persone e il loro sviluppo culturale e umano, per rendere le nostre vite, le nostre città vivibili e piene di opportunità per tutti, senza di distinzioni e senza differenze. Roma Capitale è al vostro fianco. La nostra amministrazione è impegnata a realizzare un percorso virtuoso, un programma di rilancio basato sulla sostenibilità e sull'innovazione, attraverso le grandi sfide che ci attendono, a partire dal Giubileo 2025. Un grande evento che richiamerà milioni di fedeli nella nostra città, fino alla candidatura dell'Expo 2030, attraverso il quale vogliamo immaginare e realizzare Roma per i prossimi decenni. Una Roma che, accanto alle prospettive di crescita economica e sociale progressiva, sempre più una città inclusiva, deve diventare quella Roma attenta ai bisogni, in particolar modo dei più fragili. Sono contenta, felice e orgogliosa, anche a nome dell'Assemblea Capitolina, che attraverso RIMUN voi giovani provenienti da tanti paesi possiate portare la vostra sensibilità e attenzione su temi prioritari e così importanti ed essere poi stimolo per noi istituzioni a partire da quelle locali fino ai governi nazionali e centrali. Concludo con una considerazione. Si dice che voi siete il nostro futuro. No, voi siete il presente. Con questo tipo di attività e iniziative siete protagonisti del nostro mondo e poi del futuro, generatori di idee e progetti, e dovete far sentire con forza la vostra voce. Buon lavoro a tutti e che ognuno possa raggiungere le proprie opportunità. Grazie.
We will now repeat the speech in English for all international students. I'm happy to convey the greetings of the City of Rome, the Mayor Roberto Gualtieri, and the Capital Assembly on the occasion of the opening ceremony of the 16th edition of Rome International Model United Nations, RIMUN. Welcome to the capital. Welcome to the Aula Giulio Cesare, home of the Rome City Council, capital of Italy, highest place of participation and democratic debate. I'd like to thank Liceo Farnesina and greet all the participants to this new edition who will debate on issues of international relevance in the spirit and respect of principles that inspire the work of the United Nations. These days, you will have an experience of great interest, especially on a human level. You will get to know each other and cross different points of view. You will embark on beautiful political actions starting from a particular vision in order to arrive at effective shared solutions. You will carry out real diplomatic activities, mediations, to realize a sum of the various proposals to be submitted. You will do it from starting from the theme chosen of the 16th edition of RIMUN, Energy as the Fuel of Progress in the Post-Pandemic Era. The pandemic has overwhelmed all of us, but has also incredibly brought us closer worldwide. We were isolated, but at the same time aware of facing a common battle to win that made us experience new forms of coexistence, from school systems to the organization of works. Moreover, from February 2022, a terrible war in the center of Europe has created an extreme fragility in the relations between different nations, but also the awareness that this world of peace that was built with great sacrifices after the Second World War is increasingly hanging on by a very thin thread. It is up to you guys today, more than ever, to activate the most beautiful energy for a better and sustainable community, as well as with the support of new means of communication and social channels that allows us to be connected, to overcome any boundaries, to interact constantly and change values and stories. Create, that is, a new social wealth. Together we must work to take care of our planet, to protect the environment by focusing on people and their culture and human development, to make our cities livable and full of opportunities. To anyone, without distinctions and differences, Rome Capital is at your side. Our administration is committed to achieving a virtuous recovery program based on sustainability and innovation through the great challenges that await us. From the Jubilee of 2025, a great event that will attract millions of believers in our city, until the candidacy at the 2030 Expo, through which we would want to imagine and realize the Rome of the next decades. A Rome that is a more inclusive city, attentive to the needs, especially of the most vulnerable, alongside the prospects of economic and social growth. On behalf of the Capitoline Assembly, but also personally, I'm happy and proud that through RIMUN, young people such as yourselves can bring sensitivity and attention to priority issues, and therefore be an incentive of the institutions, starting from local to central governments. I'll end with the statement. It is often said that you are our future. No, you are the present. And with this type of activities and initiatives, you are already the main characters of our world, generators of ideas and projects. And you must let your voice be heard, always. Great work, and thank you for the contribution that everyone will be able to offer. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your intervention, President Celli. It has been a huge honor for us to have you as our guest today. Now, I would like to introduce the administrator of our school, Liceo Farnesina. She has always been a devoted supporter of RIMUN, and her perseverance, dedication, and commitment have enabled us to move forward and organize this conference. So please give a warm welcome to our headmistress, Marina Frettoni.
Distinguished delegates and guests, lovely secretariat, dear MUN directors, Honorable President of the City Council, Celli. I want to welcome all of you to the 16th edition of RIMUN. In the last 3 years, we've been involved in a long, demanding and sad struggle against SARS-CoV-19. It's hard and maybe impossible to say that we've definitely won. But in this moment, the pandemic is not our only emergency. We are all together here again without any restriction, and it's a great pleasure for all of us. In the post-pandemic era, we have now other emergencies to face and solve. Some of them are ancient and well-known, such as poverty, hunger, discrimination. We can add now a new war in Europe and urgent problems such as pollution, drought, energetic needs. If nothing happens, in about 10 years, we'll face a no-return point in terms of climate change. That's why I want to express my personal endorsement to the topic of this conference, focused on energy itself. Energy as the fuel of progress. Your goal is to relate this topic to a right and sustainable development, the only one which can give the world richness, but also freedom, equality, and health. I don't want to talk long. Just a few minutes for a special thank to Federico Corallo, Jacopo Sirianni, and all the Secretariat for their dedication and engagement. To the teachers of the school, Anna Tecchio, Raffaella Santorelli, and our director, MUN director, Raffaella Liano, for their sensitive and competent support to the students and to me. A special thank also to the staff and to Ms. Soana Infusini. Each of you has made this conference possible. Last but not least, a special thank to Miss Anna Mato, of course, who stood with us in the challenging and amazing, never-ending story of RIMUN. Enjoy the conference. Thank you.
Thank you, beloved Headmistress Frittoni. I would now like to present a project we have been working on for the entire year, RIMUN History. We have decided to recreate RIMUN's history back to its beginnings from 2007. We got the opportunity to speak with the first secretariats and all those people responsible for creating RIMUN. Please welcome Alessandro Centoni, the conference manager in charge of this project, and Jan Jepka, the RIMUN history videomaker.
Honorable guests, esteemed professors and teachers and directors, dear principal and fellow members of the Secretariat, chairs and delegates. My name is Alessandro Centoni. I'm a conference manager. At the beginning of this year, I was tasked by our Secretary General to create a timeline about RIMUN's history. But as always happens in RIMUN, we got passionate about it, we got very involved in the project, and we wanted more. So the aim now is to create, alongside such timeline, a well-ordered and comprehensive database with every document, photo, and content from the very first conference, and to complete it with the interviews of the people that made RIMUN's history. You will now see just a fragment of what we want to create. It is a very ambitious goal, and it will take years to achieve it. As for now, I have to thank, firstly, Jan Jepka, that had a crucial role in the realization of the video we will now present. He is a very skilled and professional video maker, cameraman, and director, other than a very kind and available friend of RIMUN. This would not have been possible without him and his expertise. A thanks also to our Secretary General that directed me in this job, and to every person we interviewed. I won't take any more time. I'll leave the floor to Jan.
Thank you, Alessandro. Most distinguished guests, esteemed MUN directors and teachers, beloved principal, as a former delegate, I'm proud to be here because I'm standing before you, the delegates of RIMUN. You may now think that this is just a simulation, that it has a little meaning. But in reality, RIMUN is preparing you to change the world. All those interviews we conducted are the proof that people who believe in what RIMUN stands for actually change the world. And I wish for you that in a few years, you will be on the place of those people, changing this world for the better. With this small trailer, I hope to communicate to you what RIMUN has meant and still means to all of us in here. Thank you.
Sicuramente ho iniziato la simulazione e ho anche continuato in parte perché quello del diritto internazionale è un ambito dove poi io vorrei anche lavorare, quindi è stato sempre qualcosa che mi ha molto interessato e mi ha continuato a interessarmi anche dopo.
In my view, RIMUN is essential because it indeed trains people to do and to give their best in every situation.
RIMUN offers you a lot of things in the sense that of soft skills. So speaking in public, relations, also the language, English.
Quando tu arrivi il primo giorno a dover fare un colloquio di lavoro, sul curriculum non sai che scriverci, perché che ci scrivi? Esperienze poche. Beh, RIMUN è stata una grande esperienza da scrivere su un curriculum, cioè organizzare un evento per 200 persone a 18 anni, 17 anni è tanta roba.
Penso che la cosa più importante, ecco, che può dare questa simulazione ai ragazzi è l'idea di trasmettere qualcosa, e non si tratta di conoscenze o di sapere, ma si tratta di un modo di comunicare, di rapportarsi con gli altri.
It takes you out of the comfort zone. Every time you are a delegate, you have to deliver a speech. You have to do it on your own. You have to prepare it, you have to research. And then, when you just take the floor for 1 or 2 minutes, in those 1 or 2 minutes, you have to give your best.
Sicuramente da un punto di vista professionale è stato qualcosa di importante, e vi dirò di più, è qualcosa che io continuo a lasciare nel mio CV.
L'aspetto che rimane, almeno dal mio punto di vista di RIMUN, è il fatto che, ok, volevamo realizzare qualcosa e ci siamo riusciti a realizzarlo.
Cioè la possibilità di interagire con persone che vengono da paesi diversi, ma anche all'interno della stessa città, da scuole diverse, hanno storie familiari, personali, tutte diversissime tra di loro.
And the more you learn how to understand the other, the more you learn how to discuss together about a joint project, the more you can do this whatever the circumstances.
È il primo momento in cui un qualcuno, un'autorità ti riconosce un potere ed una responsabilità, e per me questo è stato un aspetto fondamentale che spero si sia mantenuto.
And that's something that you even bring forward after you terminate and you end your RIMUN experience. When you go to university, when you even start working, those are all abilities that you take with you.
So yeah, the friends are the best part about RIMUN and the best part about the conference and all the projects.
See where this is at? It's on my left. This is my heart. It's in my heart. This is RIMUN right here.
Tutti si ricorderanno delle amicizie e dei rapporti umani che hanno poi mantenuto.
What RIMUN taught me was to never take them granted and to know what friendships can really do.
Con RIMUN ho trovato mia moglie e quindi le mie figlie. Elisa, come vi dicevo, è una delle fondatrici di RIMUN.
I think my life has changed ever since I met RIMUN.
Thank you, Alessandro and Jan, for your wonderful project. I am now leaving my chairing position to Mrs. Anna Amato.
I shouldn't be doing this. It's her job. But I want to do it because it's a special moment. I have to introduce the next speaker, and you will realize why I asked Francesca. I asked her, will you allow me to present the next speaker? And she said, go ahead. So I'm going to present him. Now, what I have here is not my speech. It's just the speaker's experience and all the majestic work that he has done during his lifetime. All right, the next speaker is an engineer with a doctorate in renewable energy. His name is Leonardo Micheli, and you will soon understand why I feel this intense emotion for this young man. He did his PhD in renewable energy at the University of Exeter, UK. Then, from the year 2015 to the year 2018, he worked at a university which is called Colorado School of Mines, very near to my heart too, because I lived in Denver for 16 years, and my brother went to this university. And he worked at this wonderful, outstanding university, well known in the United States and even abroad, where he at first was a visiting researcher, and then as a staff scientist at the National Renewable Energy Laboratory. He is now, he's young, look at him, he's young. He is a professor of sustainable energy at La Sapienza University, which is a very important university in Rome. He has carried out many studies and a lot of research in the field of energy, with a particular interest in the modeling and analysis of photovoltaic systems and the minimizations of losses, especially due to soiling. And last but not least, I will now tell you why he is precious to me. First of all, he was my student. And that makes him already important. And secondly, which is a surprise for everyone, next, look at this picture. It's the picture of the 4 founders. Do you see anyone that's similar to the person sitting here? Leonardo, together with Elisa, Francesco, and Filippo, used to knock at the headmaster's door, who always sent them away. He says, no, because they wanted to. They had just returned from Lubeck, because Leonardo went to Lubeck in 2004, and is that right? 2003. And Leonardo and Elisa, and Francesco and Filippo went in 2004, and they came back full of enthusiasm, and they told the headmaster, we want to create our conference in Rome. And he said, no, it's impossible, too much work, you can't do that. Then at the end, he just gave up, and he said, well, go ahead and do it. So they went ahead, and they created our first conference in the year 2007. And it is with great honor that I present Leonardo, because he is an MUNer. He is from MUN. Look at him, what he has become. And I think I want to say what I just heard. I was in London because I have a grandchild in London, and I used to listen to his teachers, and they would say to him, good job. And I think, good job, Leonardo. And second thing they used to say, they still say, you can do it. And this is my message to you, all of you. You can do it. That is, he is your example. MUN forms people of that level. He is your example, and you all can do it. You can all become similar to Leonardo Micheli. So this is my presentation, and I did it with my heart. Okay.
Hello, hi everyone. Thank you, Prof. I mean, I thought I was invited to speak about sustainable energy, but I mean, I'm very glad for this presentation. It's nice to be back here. You know, wasn't the last time we were here, was the first time. We went through some troubles, but I have to say it's very nice to find this conference again in this room. So many skilled secretariat members, and so many enthusiastic and I really hope passionate delegates. So let me start by saying that Honorable President, Honorable Secretariat, dear Honorable delegates, ambassador, guests, it's really an honor to be here today. I am assistant professor at Sapienza University, which is very close by here, on sustainable energy. And since this is the main topic of this conference, I really want to steal a few minutes from all of you to discuss a bit what sustainable energy really means. So if we can go to the next slide, we can see how much has changed our renewable energy supply since 2007 to 2020. So I will tell until we wait for the slides. Just saying that in 2007, the world as a whole was receiving 3,000 terawatt-hour of electricity coming from renewable energies. The number by itself is not so important, while what is more important right now is that by 2020, by 2021, we have already doubled the amount of electricity that the world is provided and that is given by renewable energies. So here you can see highlighted in red where we were when this conference started, where that picture was taken, and the very last bar show you the number now. Again, it's not really, thank you, a matter of numbers, it's a matter of trend. And overall, we are doing well. So, however, we cannot be satisfied yet. The box on the right shows you how much the energy that we consume as humankind, the electrical energy that we consume as humankind, is provided by renewable energy sources, and is the yellow square, and how much of it still comes from fossil fuels. And here we are just only talking about electricity. You can imagine there are energy applications such as the automotive, where fossil fuels are even more dominant than they are in the electrical side. So of that amount of energy, electrical energy that comes from renewables, most of it comes because of hydropower, but if that square is increasing inside, is really because we are getting more power from the wind and more power from solar. And we will see how fast that will go. However, this assembly, this institution, the United Nations, tell us that to reach sustainable development, clean energy is not enough. Because according to the 7th goal of the Sustainable Development Goals, energy has to be affordable, has to be reliable, has to be sustainable, has to be modern, but what is even more important, has to be for everyone. And so really, sustainable energy is only part of the work we can do as energy engineers, as policymakers, as innovators, to make our world more sustainable. Next slide, please. And why I'm saying that? Unfortunately, the slide might be a bit small, but what it is telling us is showing us countries where energy poverty is more of a problem. So the more darker the color, the more the percentage of people that do not have yet access to electricity for basic lighting, to power a radio. So we are really talking about essential electricity. And as you can see, in part of the African continents, in some part of the world, we still have percentage of the population well below 50% that do not have access to electricity nowadays. And if we really want to make our world more sustainable, we have to grant also that population electricity. It's not just a means of leisure, right? Radios, because listening to a radio, charging a phone. There are studies that show us that the higher the energy poverty in a country, the lower the lifetime expectancy, the lower the economics. So it's not just a matter, of leisure again, it's really a matter of equality among all of us. Next slide, please. And, the problem becomes even more clear if we distinguish between the population living in urban areas, in towns, in cities, and people living in rural areas. Now, this graph shows you how, over the years, the percentage of population living in urban areas blue line above, and in rural areas have been getting access to electricity. As you can see, there is a huge disparity even between these two categories, and it should not be there. Even in cities, we still have a percentage of population that do not have access to electricity. But what is even more astonishing is that despite the progress that have been made throughout the year, thanks also to the initiatives of institutions like these, we still have a fifth of the population living in rural areas that do not have access to electricity. Now, you see that after a few years of increasing, there has been a kind of decrease in 2020. Clearly, we had to move resources because another emergency came out. But I really hope to see those lines start increasing again. So please go ahead. Now, what I'm dedicating my life to is photovoltaics. Photovoltaics is a way to really transform solar energy into electricity. It's extremely peculiar among energy technologies because there is nothing moving in it. You don't have turbines, you don't have alternators, you don't have fluids in them, there is no liquid. So it's extremely different from any other source. And if we go to the next slide, we see how that technology has been increasing over time. Now, the left vertical axis shows the cumulative capacity, so the total power of photovoltaics that has been installed all over the world, while the orange bars refer to the rightward vertical axis and show how much new energy we are installing every year. And as you can see, we are never seen so much renewables, so much photovoltaics being installed. Nowadays, we are installing in just 1 year the same amount of photovoltaics that it took us 20 years to install. This year, we reached our first terawatt milestone, and now we expect to double that in just 3 more years. So photovoltaics is growing very fast. Most of you might be familiar with them, might have them on your rooftop houses. Go to the next slide, please. And it's really being pushed because of different reasons. First of all, it doesn't require any fuel to operate because the fuel it needs comes from the sun and is available everywhere. And because of that, does not have emissions. So it is clearly essential, to fight our fight against greenhouse gases emission. However, the energy market, despite being so important also for people's welfare, for people's health, is still managed by economics and financial rules. So clearly, if it was not a low-cost technology, it would have not succeeded. So now photovoltaics has reached an extremely low cost, which makes it appealable also to investors, and that's why it's increasing so fast. It's extremely versatile. What that means is that we can find it in huge power plants, as you can see at the bottom of the figure, but you can also find them in rural houses. So in places where there is no connection to electricity, they might get connected to the electricity because now they can put a solar panel on the roof. It's extremely silent, so it really works well when we have domestic applications. Next slide, please. So I mentioned how the costs have been going down. Clearly, there have been mechanisms at international and national levels that has favored the drop in cost. On the vertical axis, you see how much it costed to install photovoltaics from 2010. How much does it cost now? Again, numbers are not important for this assembly. What is important is to look at the trend and to look how much it costs now to invest in 1 kilowatt of photovoltaics compared to fossil fuels, which are represented by the gray bar. However, despite the low cost, as you can imagine, photovoltaics has all its costs upfront. You have to make most of the costs when you install them, while motors, alternators will require fuel to operate. So if they have the same cost, it means that the installation might cost less, because you will have to pay later on for fuels. Where I want to go with that is that photovoltaics might be cheaper, but requires a big investment immediately, upfront. And so we really have to sustain small communities, landlocked countries, least developed countries, because they might not be able to get access, initially with 20 years in advance to all the funding they need to install this type of solution. Next slide, please. However, I'm not here to make a pitch to sell photovoltaics because, otherwise I will be really stealing everyone's time. What I really want to focus and what this assembly can try to solve, help us as researchers, as innovators, as designers, and as society as a whole, is to work together to limit the cons, the disadvantages of photovoltaics. Clearly, photovoltaics is available only when the sun is up, while at night we might want to have lighting. So we can use batteries, we can use storage systems to kind of address these types of problems. Is aleatory, is unpredictable, is seasonal. Go ahead with the slide, please. Go ahead again. But what I really want to focus today is a problem that is probably been underseen so far, not taken so much into account. Solar photovoltaics have very low energy density. And therefore, if we want to install so much photovoltaics in future, we are going to need a lot of land. Next slide, please. So just to give you an example, this graph shows how much land you need to generate the same amount of electricity from different power sources. If that is not clear, we have in blue nuclear, in orange natural gas, then coal, and last photovoltaics. So for every meter square of natural gas power plant we want to replace, we are going to need 20 square meter of photovoltaics. Next slide, please. And what that means is that if we really want to get to the European target, for example, we are going to need 5,000 square kilometers of new land every year to install our photovoltaic systems. Again, numbers don't say much. That's 2% of Italy. So in order to address the international goals of photovoltaics, we will have to convert a land that is equal to 2% of Italy every year into a photovoltaic power plant. Next slide, please. And what that means is that we might be competing against, or with farmers, with the food production chain. And clearly, we don't want to do that. Sustainable energy should not come at other costs for the environment and for the society. Right now, in Spain, it's already more convenient, more economically profitable for farmers to give up their land to install photovoltaic panels rather than growing cereals. Next slide, please. Also, if we are going to use so much land, we might risk, there might be risk of deforestation. So we might be removing, trees and forests that help us keeping low the greenhouse gas concentration in the atmosphere to place photovoltaic panels. Now, the intention might be good, but we will still have environmental effect that we really want to limit. Next slide, please. So, as a community, we are working already to fight against these issues. We are looking for innovative solutions. I'm studying a few of them. We are working to making our photovoltaics module more efficient, for example. This way, from every square meter of land, we can extract more energy. From every square meter of silicon that we use to build the module, we can generate more energy. We are trying to integrate photovoltaics in building. And be careful, that does not mean apply photovoltaic to building. We don't want to just place photovoltaic on top of the building. We want to replace structural materials of building with photovoltaics. Photovoltaics is becoming more efficient. We have new technologies, semi-transparent technologies that can be also applied, for example, to windows. Two of the most exciting new solutions are known as agri-PV and floating PV. So we are really working as a community along with agricultural partners to try to integrate photovoltaics and agricultural crops. This way we can help farmers get the electricity they need without giving up the food production. Also, there are studies and there are already investments in Italy, in Europe, in the Asian countries, where you can find photovoltaics installed in water rather than in land in order to have less competition, again, with agriculture, with farming, with natural habitats. Please, go to the next slide. So, is that crazy? Well, there is a lot of plastic used in agriculture. You see in the top slide on the left, the greenhouses are made of plastic. We can now start thinking about greenhouses where instead of using plastic, can be made of photovoltaic materials. Plastic are used also on the ground, middle picture in the top, where in order to preserve the moisture, to limit the evaporation of water from the ground, well, photovoltaics can do that, can limit water evaporation from the ground if built in a sustainable way. Last, there are countries, I know for sure US, countries in the Arabian Peninsula, where water reservoirs are covered with black plastic balls, as you can see in the video, in order to limit water evaporation rates. Well, is that crazy, or is crazier thinking about putting a solar panel on top of the water so we can produce electricity and preserve water that is extremely helpful, clearly, essential for drinking and irrigation. So, next slide, please. So, really, the message I wanted to bring to you today is that, yes, to work towards sustainable development, to work towards sustainable energy, we are going to need more renewables. But at the same time, we have to fight against energy poverty, because sustainable energy will not succeed if energy is not accessible to everyone. And as I've seen, there are still significant gaps between rural and urban population. So policymakers, I cannot forget, I'm talking to UN delegates, should work with us to help identify, economic, financial mechanisms that can favor the development of new renewable energies, especially in those countries that cannot afford it yet. As I said, that might be cheap in some countries, but other countries, families, might still struggle to install that. Also, we have to work together to find the boundaries for renewable energies, because we don't want to create more environmental issues that we already have, and therefore we have to work together, to identify novel opportunities for sustainability. Clearly, please keep supporting research, development, innovation, because this is one of the ways we have been able, or at least the generation before mine has been able, to make renewable energy cost competitive and convenient. Next slide, please. Now, the President will allow me to, to take one last minute, because I cannot forget that, in addition to talking to delegates, I'm talking to present and future citizens. And, you will hear a lot of time that life is not black and white. And probably that's true. That's true. There are shades of color, color you can choose through. But this does not mean that you cannot choose the brightest side, right? And even more importantly, this does not mean you should not work to make the brighter side even more brighter. So, what I want to say with this is that, yeah, keep fighting for, what you believe, keep working on what you believe. Do not forget, however, that any work you do has to be supported by reason and by care for others. And this is nothing revolutionary, right? You have been the first one as Assembly telling us, telling the humankind, that if we don't care for others, if we don't provide sustainable energy for everyone, we cannot really get into a sustainable, fully sustainable energy network. So thank all of you.
Thank you, Mr. Micheli, for your intervention. As the topic of sustainable energy will be fundamental to our debate this year, we hope that your speech has been inspiring and motivated to our delegates. Before proceeding with the next guests, we want to thank once again the President Celli for coming today. Our next guests will be members of the organization Grand Challenges Field Study Alumni. GCFSA is an association that gives young people the chance to take part in the development of renewable energy communities with engineers, economists, and other experienced professionals. Please welcome Tommaso Gallozzi and Felipe Micangeli, GCFSA representatives.
So, honorable guests, honorable members and secretariat, and honorable delegates and ambassadors, it is an honor to be here today. I'm Felipe Micangeli. I'm a student from Sapienza University here in Rome. I recently graduated in Economics and International Cooperation, and I'm here with Tommaso Gallozzi, an energy engineer still from Sapienza University. So he's the smart guy, he's the engineer, I'm just an economist. So we are board members of the Field Study Alumni Association. We are a student association that organizes training activities about energy transition and sustainable development here in Rome and in Lazio region and around the world. We go towards rural areas of East Africa and Latin America. So today we're going to talk about what we do usually, so about what is energy and how it is distributed around the world. So Leonardo, I want to thank Leonardo for the remarkable job he did in talking about the technology and the big opportunities that photovoltaics has in the world. And I'm going to focus a bit more about where does energy come from, where is it going, meaning who's using it, and how can we do better in producing and consuming energy. Next slide, please. So let's start from the very, very beginning. You may already know that there are two main kind of sources on renewable energy. We have fossil fuels and we have renewable energy sources. Talking about fossil fuels that are the bad guys, of course, you may know about the cons about the environment, but I want to focus also on the other disadvantages that these sources have. We see the small, maybe you see the small dots around the world where fossil fuels come from. So most of the energy we're using today probably comes from one of those, at least one of those dots around the world. You see they are very concentrated, and this leads to two main problems. First is we have to transport them around the world. And second is that they're not only a main source of energy, they're also a main source for geopolitical issues. So next slide, please. Do you think it's the same for renewable energy sources? Well, not actually. You can see sun shines for everybody, as Leonardo was saying, everywhere in the world. We also have wind, we have water. And using them is not only better for the environment, it is also easier in terms of not having to move a resource around the world, and it's also much more peaceful, because we can't fight about who's owning the sun. So next slide, please. Next slide, please. Well, we know that, now we know that we have the technology, because Leonardo was talking about it, and we have the resources, because we've just seen all the red in the map. Sun is mostly everywhere. But still, this is the map we were seeing before, energy is not accessible to all of the world. Nowadays, we have 9 people out of 10 that have everyday access to energy, so that's not bad. And we are increasing. I mean, in the last 10 years, we got from 80% up to 90%. We outpaced population growth. Still, we see that the blue part of the map, as Leonardo was saying, is mainly regarding rural areas of the world, where it is hard to find the fossil fuel sources. Because as we saw in the first map, the small dots were around the world, and Africa was the widest part of the map because it had less fossil fuel resources. So my question that is now passing to Tommaso Gallozzi here is, Is there a way to use and to produce and use energy in a more distributed way around the world?
Fellow delegates and Honorable Chair and Secretariat, well, the answer is yes. There is a new way to produce energy. And going to the next slide, we can see it. This is the transition from fossil fuels to renewable energy sources. It's not only a thing about reducing the emissions of CO2 and reducing the problems about the environment, but it means moving towards a different model of production, which is decentralizing the energy production. What does this mean? It means, as we saw from the map, that renewable energy, solar energy, but also other sources, are distributed all around the world. They are spread. They are present in every part of the world. This means that we are able to produce energy in every region, every spot of the world. What does this mean? That we are able to produce energy in the same spot where we are consuming it. This changes the system. This is a passage from a centralized energy production system where we have a few big, huge power plants that supply the whole energy need of the world, to a more distributed energy production where we have many small production realities. Why do I say realities? Because they are adapted. They fit the location in which they are present. We can, depending on the source that we have locally, we can use different technologies. It could be photovoltaics, as we said before. It could be hydroelectric systems. It could be aeolic systems. There's a lot of them. And this changes our role also. It changes the role of the consumer. This is not anymore a passive role. This becomes an active member in the production. Me installing a photovoltaic panel on the top of my roof, I'm becoming part of the production system. And the system becomes bidirectional. It's not only a direct chain where I'm the end of it, but I'm part of it, and I can inject energy in the system and contribute to the common good. Well, does this model already exist? The answer is yes. The distributed energy production has already some example around the world, which are mini-grids. What is a mini-grid? This is a small community where the national grid is not able to reach. So before the birth of the mini-grid, they do not have access to energy. This is the context of energy poverty and rural areas, as we saw before. So the solution is to create a local production system that gives access to energy for the first time to the small community, and they become completely self-sufficient about energy. And they become also sustainable, since the energy production that they use locally is renewable energy. This is the perfect example of a local production system. But how can we translate this into a more developed society in which we already have access to energy and we have much higher consumption of energy? Well, going to the next slide, we can see the energy communities are the solution in this case, which takes the principles of mini-grids, producing locally the energy that we need, but also integrating it with the national grid, which allows to supply every consumption that we need, even if the local production is not so high in that moment, but also allowing us to share the energy that we produce with the rest of the part of the systems. So energy communities are the translation of mini-grids. They are the local production in the developed countries. What we want to emphasize today is also that this is not sufficient. The technology installation is not itself the solution, because the solution, since we all take part in the energy production, is also the awareness of the people that have to be aware of what moment we are passing through and what we are doing with energy. So going to the next slide, we have worked personally as an association in rural contexts for the development of mini-grids, and our work was not only for the development of the technical project, but also for the training, for the formation of the people, giving them the tools to be able to use at their best chances the technologies that were installed. And going again on to the next slide, also in Italy, this can be is an essential aspect, the formation. The decentralization of the production centralizes everyone at the same time. We are all have an active role in the energy transition. And that's what we have to be aware of. That's what we need to know. And this passes through formation in parallel with the technology development. Next slide. Thank you, everyone. I yield my time to the chair.
Thank you for your interventions. I would like to introduce you to our next speakers. They are members of ENEA, the Italian National Agency for New Technologies, Energy and Sustainable Economic Development. ENEA aims at research, technological innovations, and the provision of advanced services to public administration and citizens in the sectors of energy, environment, and sustainable economic development. I am glad to introduce to you all Gian Maria Sannino and Maria Vittoria Struglia, two ENEA representatives.
Good morning. I am Maria Vittoria Struglia, and I'm here with my colleague Gian Maria Sannino. We are mainly climate scientists and climate modelers, but we have been working also on ocean energy. So first of all, thank you for inviting us to your opening ceremony, and congratulations on the theme chosen this year, because really it's certainly topical and highly relevant. We will talk about ocean energy and how it may contribute to energy transitions. So we have chosen this title and subtitle, Powering the Transition to a Sustainable Future. Next, thanks. Let us start recalling some facts and how these facts will naturally lead us to consider clean energies and energetic transitions. First of all, we have global warming. This is a fact. The atmosphere is warming globally. And the figure shows the time series of the annual mean air temperatures with respect to an early industrial period. It means that since then, the atmosphere has gained more than 1 degree Celsius in global average. It may seem a little increase, but it corresponds to a huge quantity of energy in reality. The second fact is that although the warming is global, it is not uniform, however. So we have regions where this trend is growing faster than in other regions, and as we are in Rome, I have chosen to show you, for example, the graph showing the temperature, the atmosphere temperature average over the Mediterranean basin. And as we can see, we have gained almost half a degree more than the global average. This is what we call a climate hotspot. The third fact is that there's a question, why is the global temperature growing so fast? This increase has been attributed to the increase of concentration of greenhouse gases in atmosphere. Here in the graph, we have superimposed the graph of the curve of the temperature anomalies, just one that I have shown before, and we have superimposed the graph of the increasing of the concentrations of CO2, which is one of the most important greenhouse gases. We can see that the previous, thanks. We can see that the two curves correlate very well, but beyond this correlation, which does not imply causality, many studies have been conducted that lead to this strong statement that we can see that I have taken from the last report of the Intergovernmental Panel for Climate Change. And it's quite strong and strict. So let's go to the other things. Humankind, what it happens is that humankind is heavily affecting the natural balance of the Earth. But why? If we have a look to this graph, we can see that we have been burning fossil fuels mainly for energy production and for transport. So, starting from this fact, what we have to say is that we need, it's quite clear and evident that we have the need to reduce the greenhouse gases emissions, and if possible, invert the trends that we have seen so far. So next slide, thanks. So we have to move to clean energies, but why to ocean? Because the sea contains a lot of energy. Anyone that has experience of the sea knows very well how much energy it can unleash. Many examples can be found. For example, we have chosen this beautiful book by Joseph Conrad, Typhoon. We know that the sea has really a lot of energy. But next slide, please. Shifting from literature and words, we can see also some recent images that can help us to have a glimpse of what can be the strength of the sea. For example, these pictures show the situation before and after the passage of the Cyclone Anne along the UK coasts in 2014. So, next slide, please. Stated in these terms, the problem seems to be one of easy solution. So we had a lot of free energy, and we just have to harvest it. Is it a new idea? No, it isn't. As we can see in this slide, we show the first patent that has been released on ocean technology, and it is of 1799. So what's happened since then and at which point we are. Now I give the floor to my colleague, which is more than me, an expert of ocean energy, and he's even the chair of the working group on ocean energy of the European Set Plan.
Thank you, Victoria. So, chairs, delegates, let me say something about ocean energy. So we have heard before that we can use, for example, for the energy transition, the solar power. And, but we know that using solar power means also limited, I mean, the use of the land. So why don't use, for example, the ocean? We have a lot of, let's say, water around us. You know that more than 70% of our planet is water. So why don't use also water to produce energy? This is a very long story that started at the beginning of the 19th centuries. Since then, actually, we don't have yet to say a prototype or device to extract energy from the ocean. This is because the ocean is not a simple system. It's quite complicated. So this is not simple, but it's not impossible to extract energy from the ocean. And of course, we need to know where is the ocean energy, because even the ocean energy is not uniformly distributed all around our planet. We can extract energy, for example, from the waves, or from the currents, or from the tides. So it depends where is this energy. We need to understand how it is distributed, and this is why also climatologists are working hard to discover where are the main sources of this kind of energy all around the world. The next, please, next slide. And next, please. And why we need to do that? Because we have a lot amount of energy. So if you see the energy that we use currently during 1 year all around our planet, the amount of energy stored in our ocean is n times the amount of energy that we need to power our, let's say, economy. So this is why we need to push and we need to do research on ocean energy, because we have a lot of energy. And also because most of our big cities are very close to the sea, are all around our coast, the planet, the coast of our planet. So this is why we need to harvest energy from the ocean. The next, please. The next again. So as I told before, we have a lot of energy, but this energy is not really simple to harvest. We need very, to say, genius, let's say, devices. Next, please. And this is what we are doing also here in Europe. So there are a lot of projects, European projects, who are trying to converge on a single device or a few numbers of devices to extract energies. Next, please. Next again. So here you see some examples. So some prototypes have been already developed. Let me say that Europe now is the #1 all around the world for the ocean energy. So Europe is working very hard to be the #1 in the world to harvest, to generate energy from the sea. Here you see some examples just coming from Italy, from Portugal, Spain, and so on. So some prototypes are already on the sea, and they are trying to do two things: to demonstrate that they are, I mean, enough reliable to generate energy, and enough, let's say, strong to resist to the energy of the sea that sometimes can be very, very strong. The next, please. Why we need ocean energy? Because we can use those energy to reduce the amount of CO2 that we emit for producing energy in our, let's say, climate system, and especially in the atmosphere. The next, please. Next slide, please. And also because you have to know that ocean energy is much more stable than the other kind of renewable energies. And you can understand this with this very simple example. Ocean energy, and if we just see the wave energy is another way to image the wind energy, because the waves are generated by the wind. But the differences between wind energy and the ocean energy is that if you have blades that are just extracting the energy from the wind, you can extract energy only when the wind is just blowing there in that specific point. The wave energy are derived also in places where the wind were not blowing. So consider that even the wind is blowing just in the middle of the ocean. It generates waves that comes to the coast of the Portugal or the island, whatever, in Europe, for example. And so in this kind of, if you see this kind of energy, it's a sort of collector of wind energy. So you are just getting a lot of wind energy and bring this energy just in one specific place. So from this point of view, the ocean energy is much more stable than the other kind of renewable energy. Next, please. Again, we can also use what we have already around the shipyard, for example. So Italy, Portugal, Ireland, I mean, all the biggest, let's say, largest countries in Europe, but not only in Europe, also all around the world, that are already working on producing ships or producing, let's say, other stuff that are just in the middle of the ocean. Even the oil company that are, I mean, experts of offshore oil extraction, they can convert their, let's say, strategy to produce ocean energy instead of extracting oil from the bottom of the ocean. So from this point of view, we need a conversion, and this conversion can be very profitable because we can have a lot of new jobs if we just put our effort on the ocean energy. Next, please. And let me say that among all the renewable energies, the ocean energy has a very good impact on the population, because this kind of objects are just in the middle of the ocean, very far from our eyes, very far from, let's say, the problem that renewable energies, the standard renewable energies, can generate on the population. But we are also working on to understand what is the impact on the environment of this kind of prototype. We did a test, for example, a couple of years ago on how a prototype that Enea and Politecnico di Torino has generated in the past can, how this prototype can impact, for example, the fish all around our island. And we just discovered that actually this kind of prototype can generate a very low impact on the fisheries. So this is another way, let's say, point that is good for the ocean energy. There is a very high social, low social impact on the coastal community. The next slide, please. And again, let me reconcile the final of my presentation with the starting of our presentation, climate. So if you read one of the latest IPCC report, that was the report just on the ocean and cryosphere, they just say that the ocean can be saved by the ocean energy, because remember that most of the extra heat that we have produced due to the climate change, the human impact on the climate change, has been stored in the ocean. The 93% of the extra heat produced by ice have been stored in the ocean. This means that only the 7% of extra heat is in the atmosphere, and the 7% has increased the surface temperature of our planet of more than 1 degree in less than 100 years. So we have to say thank you to the ocean, because the ocean has been a sort of sponge, a good sponge for us, but be careful. This is not an infinite sponge, because in any case, absorbing heat means also increasing the volume of the ocean. Increasing the volume means sea level rise. So be careful. We cannot say to the ocean, please absorb all our extra heat for, infinite time, because in any case, the ocean is still responding to this extra heat, increasing the sea level rise. So sea level rise is just rising for two main reasons. One, because we are just adding water, because we are melting the glaciers, but 40% of the reason is because they are just increasing the volume. So we need to stop, in any case, the emission of CO2, and let me say that the ocean can be a very, let's say, ally for us. So the ocean can help us to reduce the emission of CO2 because of the ocean energy, and in this case, the ocean can save itself because, will not anymore absorb heat from the atmosphere. It's your time. You are the young generation. The climate is changing. We are already now in a climate crisis, but this crisis can be a different end. So this movie is not at the end, it's still not at the end, and you can write the end of this movie. It's up to you, so please try to do your best. Thank you.
Thank you for your speeches. I am now glad to introduce to you all our esteemed MUN advisor. I am proud to say that without her enthusiasm, passion, and commitment, the project would not be there. Back in 2007, this teacher was brave enough to create RIMUN and to support some young and very ambitious students that then became the founders of RIMUN. Please join me welcoming Mrs. Anna Amato.
Very, very few words, because my job here is to introduce her. As Nancy just told me when I met her, she's from Cancun, she says, we survived. And we are here. So we have here present our old friends, all of them, and our new friends. We have various continents. We have Mumbai, and I just told my headmaster, I said, the students from Mumbai are here, and this underlines the fact that the pandemic maybe is over. If they came all the way from India, what can we think? Then we have Cancun, with Nancy's group, and this was another really something wonderful for us. And then we have Mauritius, old friends, so they are here, and all our European friends and our USA friends. We managed to even face Harvard procedures in the USA, and they face Thyman procedures here, so that means that the message is, let's work together, right? Nothing else. So I really, really appreciate this family reunion, because this is the RIMUN family. Even though I shouldn't say this, I should say this is the MUN family. And when we had the national anthems, we had the European and the Italian one, I thought, I wish they would invent a world anthem so that we could all, be together. So my job here is not for myself. I have to introduce the main MUN director because I retired. I am the advisor, and so we have created a duo. She is the one that decides together with the headmaster, logically, and she is the one that now takes initiatives, and she's great because she's worked with me for 5 years. And however, I advise. So if she has some doubt or anything, she'll call me and she'll say, what do you think? What should I do? And I said, oh, okay, do this. And she accepts it because we work in Syntony. So there is no rivalry because I retired. I mean, I'm out of the scene, but I'm still here. I'm still here because I can't, really be out of the scene. It's impossible. When you have MUN in your heart, you can never let go. So I'd like to introduce the main MUN director, and she is great now. She's wonderful, and I just hope she never leaves Rome because she has someone in Sicily, and we're afraid she might decide to go there, which we hope she doesn't, because it takes a long time to be an MUN director. It isn't something that you can learn in one day. It isn't something you can learn in one day, and you all know this. So, Raffaella Agliano, let's give her a big applause.
Thank you, Anna. So she did my speech. Thank you. Honorable Headmaster, dear Secretary General, PGA, delegates, secretariats, honorable MUN directors, distinguished guests. It's an honor for me to be here with you and to share with you the 16th edition of RIMUN Conference. This is one of the most challenging editions we have ever had after a struggling period for each country, for all people, for the entire world, and particularly for the schools. And I believe young people got the worst of it. This is the reason why I am extremely proud of, and I want to thank this passionate, enthusiastic group of young adults who have worked so hard despite the difficulties they had faced to create the conference in presence again. Thanks to their remarkable resilience, their strong belief in the project, and their collaboration, RIMUN keeps going today. And you can still express your ideas and share your opinions. We trust in you. We are all trustful and optimistic that this RIMUN, with our physical participation, will be one of the most outstanding experiences and the utmost conference. The issues chosen is a strong reflection on the current situation our society is living in. The COVID-19 pandemic has dealt a massive blow to the world, altering lifestyles for billions of people, jeopardizing the equilibrium between the nations. Furthermore, the outbreak of the Russia-Ukrainian war has struck the international balance. All at this historical moment, the issues on energy concern every aspect of our lives, from the scarcity of electricity supply to climate change. So cooperation, collaboration, peace among countries are the keys to improve our world and to live in a better, respectable condition. We should work together, as we are doing all the time, with our headmaster, with Mrs. Infusino, with my colleagues Anna Tecchio and Raffaella Settorelli that are not here, but as they are, and my tutor, Anna Mato. I would like to give a special thank to Maria Vittoria. I hope she's listening to me. She is the one who really loves this project, and she is still with us, working and helping us, even if she had the misfortune of not being the Secretary General because of the pandemic. We have tried best to continue the RIMUN tradition, and our family is finally reunited. We thank you all for being here, and we sincerely hope this international conference will meet your expectations. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Agliano. We also want to thank once again our headmistress Marina Frettoni, and we want to thank our musicians from Liceo Farnesina and their teachers Ovidio and Giordano. Before proceeding with the next speakers, we are going to entertain a 5-minute break. Please remain seated.